Mom, the senior home will be so much better for you than living alone. Trust us. My children's voices still clang like dropped silverware in my ears. If you think that was the worst sound I ever heard, stay with me, because what echoed next shredded a lifetime of Sunday table memories. Hi, sweet friends. Before we get rolling, tell me, what city are you tuning in from today? My name is Lucy. I grew up believing noise was proof of love. Back in South Philly, the Johnson house buzzed like a county fair, dominoes clacking, nieces hollering over spades, my husband Stanley's baritone rumbling hymns while I shuffled hot pies from oven to window like a one-woman brass band. Folks said I could feed an army with nothing but white flour, nutmeg, and a wink, so I did. Every Saturday, our oak table groaned under sweet potato casserole, fried catfish, and gossip thick as cane syrup. Stanley was a man of few sentences, but entire paragraphs of devotion. Carpentry hands, honey brown eyes, smile slow, as Sunday. He built our bungalow plank by plank the year Roots first aired, then painted the siding the buttery yellow of my mama's pound cake. Matches your spirit, he said, thumping the porch rail. I believed him. Back then, my spirit seared like cast iron, hot and unbreakable. Kids came quick. Michael, restless as summer thunder, and Olivia, quiet as first snow. Michael stole neighborhood hearts and later hubcaps. Olivia collected library cards and deep breaths, her freckles blooming whenever she laughed. I poured myself into mothering the way I poured vanilla into pound batter. Generous, no measuring. School trips, church drives, midnight cough watch, college tuition jars labeled faith. Our home smelled of cinnamon-laced hope until time lifted the lid and let steam escape. Stanley's heart sputtered during a January freeze. One minute he was singing Blessed Assurance while tightening a cabinet hinge. The next he slumped to the floor like a rag quilt. Doctors said aneurysm. I said nonsense and prayed CPR into him till paramedics peeled me back. When they covered his face, my kitchen light dimmed forever. Years thinned the crowd around my table. Friends started counting carbs and blessings someplace else. Grandbabies grew into phone screens. Casseroles shrank to single-serving foil pans. Yet I still set out 5 plates every night because habit remembers long after company forgets. Michael's troubles bloomed like mold after rain. He drank, crashed a borrowed Buick, dodged jail by a fingernail thanks to a praying mama and a weary public defender. Olivia, bless her neat soul, stuck close, too close. By 45, she was my shadow. By 50, she was my full-time aide, though she called it just helping out. Neighbors whispered she'd missed her own lifeboat nursing mine. I clipped those rumors like loose threads, but deep down I felt them tug. Then came the doctor visits. Blood pressure spiking like 4th of July sparklers, knees grinding gravel, memory misplacing Tuesday. Medicare kept me patched, but house repairs piled higher than church ladies at bake sale day. Michael pulsed in and out, needing a loan, needing rehab, needing forgiveness. Olivia's patience frayed into snappish sighs. I'm a nursemaid, Mama, not a woman, she muttered, voice stiff as starch. Late March, the siblings hatched their plan, Pine Haven Retirement and Wellness Village. Brochures floated across my lap, picturing silver-haired seniors line dancing under pastel balloons. Mama, you'll have professional care, new friends, cable TV, Michael said, smelling of gin-tinged good intentions. Olivia kissed my forehead like a nurse prepping a shot. Just a little while, she swore. Fear tasted metallic on my tongue, but hope whispered maybe they were right, maybe I was heavy cargo on their life raft. So I signed. They packed my Sunday hats, my church fans, my photo albums thick with fingerprints. I clutched Stanley's hammer. one last splinter of our history, while rain stitched black thread down the windshield en route to Pine Haven. If you think the worst part of this story is moving day, let me stitch you a different panel, friend, because betrayal can bake slower than bread and still rise higher than hope. The rain had already soaked my shawl by the time I eased the side door latch at Pine Haven and slipped into the night, but the chill on my skin felt gentler than the hush inside those beige halls, so I let it bite. Gravel crunched beneath sneakers the volunteer director had called practical. Water seeped into the seams, and each step toward home rang like a dare. Old bones, don't you dare fail me now. Until city blocks blurred behind curtains of mist and I reached our street, the one Stanley paved with leftover bricks to save a contractor's fee, the one where maple roots still bulged the sidewalk like history refusing to stay buried. The bungalow glowed warm against the dark, a butter-colored lantern exactly as I'd left it, and hope leapt so hard in my throat I almost forgot to breathe. I pictured Olivia folding laundry inside, Michael maybe dozing on the couch with sports droning low, and for one fragile second, I believed the brochure promise. Temporary stay, weekends home, love intact. I knocked 3 timid taps, then stronger, rain drumming back up, heart knocking louder until hinges groaned open and a barrel-chested stranger in a sweat-stained undershirt squinted at me through humid porch light. "What do you need, Granny?" he barked, the syllables snapping brittle as dry twigs. "Where's my family?" I managed, words wobbling like Newport jelly. He scratched a patchy beard, frowned as if deciphering code, then shrugged. "Bought this place off 'em a month ago. Cash deal, no clue where they landed." The door thunk shut, lock clicked, porch went dark, and the world tilted. I staggered backward, rain and tears mixing, Stanley's hammer slipping from numb fingers onto wet concrete with a hollow clatter that sounded like a coffin nail ceiling. Streetlights smeared gold rivers across the puddles while reality unspooled. My children had peeled our house from under my feet, traded decades of birthdays and hymn-sung suppers for quick money, and tucked me where guilt wouldn't echo off dining room walls. I walked because taxis felt too merciful. Dawn found me sagging against Pine Haven's gate as orderlies rushed out, voices sharp with relief, scolding blended with concern. But their hands were gentle when they guided me inside, wrapped blankets around shaking shoulders, brewed tea that tasted of nothing. Days collapsed into one another. Pale porridge mornings, prescription o'clock afternoons, whispering between residents about grandchildren who never called. I answered questions with nods. Saved words like rations carried silence the way seamstresses carry pins, close to the chest, poised to prick. Then a Tuesday dawned, bright as polished brass, and blew a new nurse through the doors. Catherine May Reynolds, hair the color of wheat in August, laugh ringing clear as Sunday bells. She plopped beside me in the lounge, said, "Bet you could teach me a pie crust my grandma never nailed," and somehow tugged a smile from lips that thought they'd rusted shut. Within a week, she'd turned the TV room into a dance floor, coaxed Iris on Walker to tap out jazz steps, convinced gruff Mr. Hollander to recite Langston Hughes, and slipped a note into my lap reading, "Talent Show Planning Committee, need head baker." I blinked at the words, heat blooming where hope had frozen, and before fear could veto, I nodded. We sifted flour in the activity kitchen, cinnamon spiraling into air like incense, and staff passing by swore the hall smelled of childhood. Residents queued for taste tests, voted the peach pecan crumble miracle on a plate, while Catherine winked, whispering, "Told you the world still needs your magic." Night after night, memories loosened their chokehold. My hands remembered kneading, my mouth remembered laughter, and the ache of betrayal dulled under the hum of purpose. One dawn, I woke to sunlight painting stripes across the bedspread and felt an unfamiliar lightness, as if forgiveness had finally pressed its cool palm to my ribs, not for the children, but for myself, for letting grief leash me so long. I dressed early, intent on surprising Catherine with fresh biscuits, but when she entered to check vitals, her smile faltered. She saw something peaceful in my posture, something finished. I baked, we served. Applause shook dust from ceiling tiles, and that evening I sat by the window, breeze fingering curtains, rain beginning again, but this time each drop sounded like a lullaby. The next morning, Catherine found me lying there, hands folded atop Stanley's hammer, my face slack, yet softly curved, the linen runner I'd embroidered. Silent needles stitched loud, draped across my lap. She said later it looked as though I'd slipped into a dream mid-laugh. Pinehaven rang with hymns at my memorial. Catherine insisted on peach pecan for the reception and played a recording of Mr. Hollander's poem. Michael never came. Word reached that drink had finally drowned him in a motel 2 towns over, and Olivia's mind fractured so thoroughly she spent her final days calling invisible guests to a table that wasn't there, begging them to taste pies no one else could smell. Some whispered karma, but I think sorrow just sows what we fail to weed. Pinehaven kept my embroidered runner hung by the lounge piano. Residents trace the letters when doubt coils tight, and Catherine tells every newcomer about a woman who believed empty dining rooms can bloom again if someone is bold enough to preheat the oven. And that stranger in the yellow bungalow, he swears sometimes when windows fog in deep autumn, a cinnamon scent drifts through the cracks and he feels compelled to set 5 plates instead of 1, though he can't explain why. Only that it makes the house feel less like a purchase and more like a promise kept. Catherine had never planned to speak at a resident's memorial, yet the words unfurled the way warm dough rises when no one is watching, so she let them fill the chapel. Lucy's laugh could flip sorrow on its back like a turtle. Lucy's crust could seal any crack in a heart. Lucy taught us that silence is just conversation waiting for cinnamon. Afterwards, when polite claps faded and peach pecan crumbs dusted paper plates, Catherine carried Stanley's weathered hammer and the linen runner back to her tiny nurse's dorm, unable to shake the feeling that both objects still hummed. She laid the hammer on the dresser, its handle dark with 50 years of life, then studied the stitched motto, "Silent needles stitch loud." The phrase felt like instructions, though she did not yet know for what. 2 weeks later, the administrator slid a box onto Catherine's desk, Lucy's remaining effects, 3 spiral notebooks, a pewter hymn book bookmark, and an envelope marked "Taxes Paid." Catherine almost left the box in storage, but a restless twitch made her pry open the notebooks that evening. Inside, pages bloomed with recipes annotated in a looping hand. Serve hot to a grieving neighbor, double sugar if hope runs low. Share second slice with the quiet child in the corner. Between pie formulas, Lucy had tucked tiny diary entries, fragments really, like scrap fabric. Michael called, slurred, still my boy. Olivia's eyes looked tired of asking permission to dream. Soldier on, Lord, stitch my patience stronger. Catherine felt the echo of a pulse long stilled and realized the notebooks weren't keepsakes, they were assignments. She sat up through midnight, transcribing every recipe onto a laptop, adding digital notes about Lucy's methods: flour chilled, butter frozen, grief melted. By sunrise, an idea had kneaded itself smooth. A community baking program for Pinehaven residents and local teens, bridging loneliness with pastry. She pitched it to the director at noon. Budget approved by Friday, volunteers signed up faster than yeast bubbles. Most volunteers, anyway. One Sunday, Catherine noticed a lanky figure hovering at the fence during class, eyes rimmed red, breath fogging the chain links. The woman's coat swallowed her frame, strands of gray hair clung to damp cheeks. "Can I help you?" Catherine called through the drizzle. The stranger flinched, then whispered, Is Lucy here?" Catherine's chest clenched. "Lucy's passed," she said gently. The woman crumpled, sliding to the curb. Catherine rushed out, knelt and fumbled for her nurse voice, but the stranger spoke first. "I'm Olivia, her daughter." The name tasted of betrayal in Catherine's mouth, yet Lucy's margarine-soft compassion flooded her memory. So she guided Olivia inside, made tea, and listened. Olivia's story spilled in broken seams. Michael's drinking swallowed their sale money, leaving debts taller than hope. Olivia's guilt mushroomed into panic attacks that dissolved her job prospects. She'd spent months tracing Lucy's new address, but felt unworthy to knock. Until gut-deep regret shoved her here. Catherine wanted to snap that Lucy had died waiting, but the runner's words fluttered in her head, reminding her that needles mend. She placed the embroidered cloth across Olivia's trembling knees, let fingers trace the letters, then offered a place in the baking class. No payment, just service. Olivia's tears spattered the linen like fresh milk in hot batter. She nodded. Olivia returned the next week, sleeves rolled, wrists shaky but determined. Elderly residents watched her measure flour with trembling care, some recognizing the slope of Lucy's shoulders, and slowly they allowed her into the hush of their afternoons. Baking became confession. While dough rested, Olivia swept hallways, recited apologies to empty air. While pies cooled, residents told their own regrets. Children unseen, passions postponed, and sugar glazed the bruised memories. One afternoon, Olivia paused at the recipe notebook and murmured, "Mama always wrote food as forgiveness," Catherine answered, "then keep writing." By Christmas, Olivia's smiles held shape, and she spoke of applying for a part-time kitchen aide post at the local elementary school. Michael never appeared, but a letter postmarked from a county jail arrived in January. Scrawled lines begging Olivia for bail and forgiveness. She brought it to Catherine, hands cold as the sidewalk outside. "He'd steal the oven doors if we let him," Olivia whispered. Catherine folded the letter, slid it beneath the hammer on her dresser, and said, "Some stitches hold, some rips you leave open so light gets through." Olivia nodded, exhaling a grief she'd worn like armor. The Bacon Bridges program, as the local press named it, caught media attention. A small-town reporter filmed residents teaching teens to hand-crimp crusts, Catherine explaining that flavor travels faster than loneliness. Footage of Olivia gently guiding a student's piping bag aired on regional news. A bakery chain donated mixers. The county awarded a mental health grant. Through it all, Lucy's mottos lived on banners, aprons, lesson plans, until silent needles stitch loud became shorthand for acts that whisper today and sing tomorrow. One spring Sunday, Olivia invited Catherine to the bungalow she had repurchased with grant stipends and her new salary. The yellow siding stood brighter than memory. Porch rail gleamed under fresh varnish. Inside, the oak table waited, flanked by mismatched chairs salvaged from thrift shops. Olivia served peach pecan crumble, recipe open beside the oven, and placed Lucy's hymn book bookmark in the center like a centerpiece. They ate in quiet reverence until birdsong floated through open windows, the same tune Lucy once hummed over rising bread. Catherine lifted her fork, tasted cinnamon, and felt a presence settle, a warmth beyond oven heat, a hush beyond silence. Confirming that somewhere, kitchen's eternal, Lucy was setting 5 plates again, room forever for one more. Spring ripened into high summer, and the Baking Bridges kitchen throbbed like a living heart, mixers whirring, timer bells chiming, teens laughing as almond glaze dripped down hot rolls. Olivia moved among them with a calm that astonished even her, checking oven dials, correcting posture with a gentle tap, wiping a tear here, fist bumping a victory there, until people began to call her Miss Liv, a name that felt equal parts new leaf and ancient root. Catherine kept Lucy's notebooks on a shelf by the door, pages fluttering whenever the backdraft whooshed in. She liked to imagine Lucy rustling approval, reminding them if a pie collapsed, just pile it into cobbler and rename the dish. July's first day delivered thick air and thunder murmurs. Catherine arrived early, finding Olivia already inside, head bent over a customer ledger. "Summer festival wants 200 hand pies," Olivia said, eyes wide but not scared. They laid out a plan, rotating shifts, teen volunteers, resident judges for quality control. By noon, the storm broke. Rain hammering corrugated roof, lights flickering, but the rolling clouds felt more thrilling than threatening. Between electrical hiccups, they baked 50 pies, cooling them on windowsills where humid wind slapped cinnamon scent across the courtyard. Residents wheeled over to watch, memory and appetite lighting their faces. Near dusk, a patrol car idled behind the building. Raindrops hissed off its hood. A deputy stepped out, cap in hand, scanning until his gaze landed on Olivia. Catherine saw her spine stiffen as if a steel ruler replaced soft tissue. The deputy introduced himself, eyes kind yet shadowed. "Ma'am, your brother Michael Johnson passed away last night. Complications from alcohol withdrawal." Rain met silence, a metronome of grief. Olivia's lips parted, but no sound left. Catherine guided her to a chair, dusted with flour, hands gripping her shoulders. The deputy recited belongings. A wallet, a tarnished locket with their baby pictures, one scribbled apology never mailed. He extended a small evidence bag. Olivia took it, thumb brushing the locket's curve, face unreadable. After he left, ovens ticked as elements cooled. Resident chatter ebbed. Everything seemed to lean toward Olivia's breath. She inhaled once, deep, then said, "We have pies to finish." Catherine started to protest, but Olivia shook her head. "Mama taught me grief rises like bread. You punch it down, let it rest, and it grows again, lighter." They worked through the night, rolling, crimping, sugaring, their silence thick yet shared. At dawn, Olivia set the last tray on the rack, straightened shoulders, and whispered, "Rest, Mike." Only then did tears slip free, and Catherine held her until sunrise bled through kitchen blinds like thin honey. Festival day dawned sparkling. Volunteers loaded hand pie boxes into a rattling school bus. Residents lined the driveway, waving wooden spoons like parade batons. At the fairground booth, a reporter recognized Olivia from the news segment and asked for a quote about community healing. Olivia glanced at the pies, ruby filling gleaming through lattice vents, and answered, "Everything sweet starts with broken fruit and heat." The soundbite aired statewide. Orders flooded in. That evening, Catherine found Olivia at the bungalow, locket dangling against her collarbone. They sat on the porch swing Stanley had built decades before, cicadas thrumming. Olivia opened the evidence bag again, revealing Michael's crumpled note. Together they unfolded it. "Sis, if you're reading this means I messed up again. Tell Mom I'm sorry I sold the house. Tell her I sold it because debt collectors were coming and I thought I could fix it before she ever knew. Tell her I still taste her pies when nights get bad." Olivia traced the shaky pen lines, then slipped the letter under Lucy's hymn book bookmark on the table. "Some debts only grace clears," she murmured. Catherine nodded, understanding that forgiveness is yeast, risky, alive, unpredictable, and still the only ingredient that makes dough rise. In August, the governor's office phoned again. Baking Bridges had won a humanitarian award, ceremony at the Capitol, televised statewide. Olivia balked. Public stages still felt like tight shoes. but Catherine quoted Lucy, "Hospitality starts with opening your own door." They traveled by charter bus, residents dressed in their Sunday go-to-meeting best, teens snapping selfies, Catherine clutching Stanley's hammer in her tote for luck. In the grand rotunda, chandeliers glittered like sugared citrus peel. When Olivia stepped to the podium, applause rolled like distant thunder, but she steadied herself on the archive of recipes in her mind. She spoke of second servings, of how pain shared tastes less bitter, of silent needles stitching louder than cruel words. Cameras captured tears on dignitaries' cheeks. Social media bloomed with the hashtag #StitchLoud. Within days, 2 neighboring states requested program blueprints, and a National Culinary Institute offered Olivia a scholarship to formalize her skills. She accepted, though only on the condition that half the coursework be remote. "My elders still need pie crusts," she said, making the dean laugh and concede. The scholarship check arrived the same week. Catherine hung ocean-colored curtains in the dormer windows of the barn studio. The linen rippled whenever afternoon breeze sailed through, casting turquoise light on stainless steel counters. Olivia ran fingertips over the fabric, then looked toward a framed photo of Lucy perched on the shelf. Her mother mid-laugh, flour smudge on cheek, pride arcs around her eyes. She'd say, "Take the class, honey, but save the scraps for cobbler," Olivia whispered. Catherine smiled. Certain Lucy was nodding somewhere beyond the curtain hem. Their final summer bake sale raised enough to establish a micro-grant fund for residents seeking personal projects, garden plots, memoir printing, even a small bird-watching gazebo off the courtyard. And on the anniversary of Lucy's passing, the Pine Haven dining hall filled, not with silence or stale jello, but with string band music and every resident wearing aprons, stamped with silent needles stitch loud. Olivia unveiled a 3-tier peach pecan cake, Michael's locket baked inside its top layer, wrapped in parchment like a secret grief now sweetened, and served slices while Catherine read from Lucy's notebook. "If life hands you crumbs, add melted butter, press, and build the pie from there." Cups clinked, frosting smeared, laughter ricocheted off paneled walls until the old building shook with belonging. Later, alone in the quiet kitchen, Catherine hung Stanley's hammer on a peg above the stove, the linen runner draped beneath it, and felt the room breathe. Cinnamon lingering, yeast still warm, grief folded into layers so thin it only flavored, never weighed. Through the window, fireflies stitched gold dashes across the dark yard, silent, but oh, how loudly they shone. The year after Baking Bridges won its humanitarian award felt like a spool spinning at double speed, thread unspooling statewide, knotting strangers into neighbors faster than Catherine could tally sign-ups. By March, 13 libraries and 4 high schools baked pies every other Friday, shipping half to senior centers and half to shelters. Lucy's handwritten recipes, scanned from the notebooks, photos of flour-dusted margins intact, hit bookstore shelves under the title Silent Needles, Loud Kitchens. Proceeds flowed straight back into microgrants. Residents claimed them for seed starters, memoir printing, even a tiny greenhouse that now glowed behind Pine Haven like a lantern of lettuce. Olivia balanced it all while chipping away at the online culinary diploma. Early morning knife skills modules, midnight quizzes about leaveners. Twice a semester, she flew to the Institute for Practical Labs, leaving Catherine in charge with a color-coded binder thick as a hymnal. Each return flight, Olivia tucked new techniques into her carry-on, laminated charts, tiny tasting spoons, then taught them to teens whose eyes widened at words like pâte sucrée. She still wore Michael's locket, now polished bright, as if memory could gleam instead of ache. Catherine, meanwhile, discovered that scaling hope invites bureaucratic indigestion. State budgets froze after a hurricane wrecked 2 coastal counties, and the grant committee warned all non-critical programs face suspension. A terse email hit her inbox on an April Tuesday. Funding review hearing in 6 weeks. Provide data or lose support. Fear pricked, sharp as a seam ripper slip, but she breathed through it. We'll prove pies save money on antidepressants, she joked, though no one laughed. That night, a spring storm battered Pine Haven, wind hurling petals against windows like pink hail, while Catherine sat in the nurse dorm drafting impact charts. 2:30 a.m., her vision blurred, letters skittered sideways. She blamed exhaustion until sudden pain clamped behind her sternum. The room tilted, spreadsheets sliding off her lap. Instinct moved her hand to the emergency button, but before she pressed, the pain eased, leaving sweat-slick dread. She told no one come morning, only swapped coffee for herbal tea and kept typing. Olivia noticed the new pallor. Kath, you look unbaked inside, yet accepted the explanation of just numbers fatigue. Together they hatched a defense, a statewide pie drive paired with mobile health clinics. If they could deliver 3,000 desserts and 3,000 blood pressure screenings in one weekend, maybe legislators would taste and measure their worth. Press kits flew, radio hosts booked interviews, volunteers stitched aprons bearing Lucy's motto. Pine Haven's hallway thrummed like an airport gate as flour, test strips, cinnamon, and stethoscopes piled into labeled crates. 2 days before launch, Catherine collapsed while loading mixers into the van. Residents thought she'd tripped, but Olivia saw the gray glaze on her skin and called EMS before questions. In the ER, monitors beeped slow warnings. Doctors confirmed a silent myocardial infarction, the attack she'd half survived weeks earlier. Stent now, rest afterwards, they ordered. Catherine's protest wilted under Olivia's glare. While surgeons threaded wires through arteries, word of the hospitalization raced through the Baking Bridges network. Teen leaders convened an emergency video call under the greenhouse's glow. Residents dragged clipboards into the day room. Olivia stood in scrubs at Catherine's bedside afterward, binder clutched to chest, whispering that she'd cancel the drive. Catherine's fingers, weak but stubborn, curled over hers. Recipes survive without the baker, she rasped. So does mission. Her eyes, exhausted embers, flickered into spark. By dawn, Olivia addressed the assembled army in Pine Haven's dining hall, voice trembling but firm. We run the drive in her honor, she said. We'll plate courage with every slice. The hall erupted in spoon-thumping applause. Teens took delivery routes. Residents manned call centers. Librarians mapped oven schedules like military logistics. Olivia set up command at the barn studio beneath the ocean curtains, Lockett tapping her sternum like a metronome for resolve. Catherine, confined to telemetry, watched live streams on a tablet, aproned elders folding dough beside tattooed high schoolers, nurses checking glucose levels outside pie stalls, local news anchors tasting pecan and rattling off mental health referral stats. Tears salted her broth. When a nurse asked if she needed anything, she whispered, "Just volume up, please." By Sunday evening, the numbers scrolled across Olivia's laptop in bold green: 3,212 pies served, 389 screenings, 212 hypertension alerts, 67 new therapy referrals. She exhaled a laugh that broke into a sob, equal parts triumph and terror released. Legislators touring one fair site bit into peach hand pies while medics explained cost savings on ER visits avoided. Cameras captured sticky-fingered senators nodding vigorously. The next morning, Olivia carried a coral-colored box into Catherine's hospital room. Inside lay a miniature lattice pie, steam still curling, and a printed spreadsheet of weekend metrics signed by every volunteer. Catherine's heart monitor blipped faster. Nurses smiled unalarmingly. Olivia set the box on the tray, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Funding review in 2 days. Rest. We've got the presentation." Catherine closed her eyes, tears seeping into crow's feet, the smell of cinnamon promising survival. Outside, dawn painted the sky the same blue-green as the Lisbon linen. Olivia tapped the locket, watching sun spill through corridor glass, and felt the faint, steady rhythm of a story still stitching itself. Needle passing, thread tightening, fabric refusing to tear, even as the next tug, the legislative vote, waited just beyond the seam. The marble corridors of the State House smelled faintly of lemon wax and apprehension when Olivia stepped inside, clutching Catherine's weathered linen runner like a talisman. 2 nights of zero sleep had left her eyelids hot and gritty, but adrenaline fluttered under her ribs, equal parts fear and something fiercer, pride. Teen volunteers flanked her in borrowed blazers. The oldest resident ambassador, 91-year-old Mr. Hollander, rolled at her side in a plaid blanket, and every name tag read "Baking Bridges, Stitch Loud." They filed into the Appropriations Committee chamber, a vaulted room where polished mahogany seemed to judge everyone equally. Lawmakers glanced up, some curious, some already bored, tapping tablets like impatient metronomes. Olivia's name was called. She rose, smoothed an apron embroidered with Lucy's motto over her skirt, and began not with statistics, but with a smell. "Picture cinnamon," she said, voice steady, mic echoing. "Picture it carrying stories deeper than any therapist's question." She painted word scenes. A widower who laughed for the first time in years, kneading dough next to a foster teen. A hypertensive grandmother whose blood pressure normalized after weekly pie socials. A county ER whose readmission numbers dipped because nurses screened seniors at dessert booths. Then she clicked to the weekend's metrics. Charts glowing green, columns climbing like hope on scaffolding. A hush settled. Even the fidgeting senator with the loud tie stilled. Finally, Olivia unfolded the linen runner across the witness table, the Atlantic blue fabric glowing under fluorescent lights, and laid Catherine's hammer atop it. This cloth hung over hospital monitors while our founder recovered from a silent heart attack she nearly ignored to keep this mission alive, she said, voice cracking only once. The hammer is her late husband's. Reminder that sturdy homes and sturdy communities are built with steady hands. Give us the tools, and you will keep building. Questions came. Liability, scalability, Sugar's health risks. Olivia answered without flinch, citing dietary swaps, partner insurance waivers, a waiting list of counties pledging matching funds. Mr. Hollander wheeled forward unexpectedly and recited Langston Hughes's "I Too Sing America," his voice paper-thin yet resonant. When he finished, the room erupted in spontaneous applause that no gavel tried to quell. 47 minutes after entering, the delegation walked back into sunlight, blinking like new coins. Olivia's knees buckled as soon as they hit the plaza. Teens whooped. Mr. Hollander dabbed tears. They didn't have the vote yet, but something intangible had clicked into place, like crust sealing around hot filling. That evening, Olivia hurried to the hospital. Catherine sat propped by pillows, color blooming back into her cheeks, streaming the committee replay on a tablet. She hit pause as Olivia entered, eyes shining. "They'll fund it," Catherine murmured. "I saw it in their faces. Same look hungry folks get when oven doors swing open." 2 days later, the governor's seal stamped the budget reinstatement plus an unexpected line item: statewide expansion and mobile baking labs. News broke while Olivia taught a pot sucre lesson. Teens screamed, dough flew, residents banged saucepans like cymbals. Catherine's discharge papers arrived in tandem. Pine Haven staff lined the hall, forming a charger lid arch, and she walked beneath it, heart stitched with stent and gratitude, Olivia steady at her elbow. Weeks blurred, grant checks deposited, second-hand food trucks retrofitted with convection ovens, librarians trained in basic CPR. Catherine limited herself to 4-hour shifts, doctor's orders. She carried a timer that beeped every 90 minutes to remind her heart it was loved. Olivia finished the final practicum for her diploma, graduating at the top of her cohort. The institute dean attended wearing a stitched loud pin. On the first run of the mobile baking lab, nicknamed Lucy's Lantern, they parked beside a rural clinic where farm workers queued in sun-cracked boots. Olivia watched a 12-year-old girl sprinkle nutmeg, listened to an octogenarian whistle as her blood pressure cuff deflated, and felt a breeze thread through the open service window carrying thrift store gospel from somebody's radio. She tilted her face to it, tasting cinnamon and road dust and tomorrow. That night, back at the barn studio, Catherine unfolded a fresh piece of blue-green linen, one Olga, the librarian had mailed from a beach thrift shop, and laid it beside Lucy's runner. She guided Olivia's hand, showing how to pierce fabric, loop, pull, a whip stitch, binding old and new. Thread whispered through cloth, and each tug felt like a heartbeat, synced between generations. When the length was finished, they embroidered one more line beneath the original motto: "Hands may tire, but stitches carry on." The needle passed from mother to daughter to stranger and back again, silent, yes, but ringing louder than any shout that once tried to declare someone useless in old age. Outside, the mobile lab's headlights cut a silver path toward counties still unserved, and cicadas drummed accompaniment as if the night itself were humming, "Rise, doe, rise." Summer's last breath rippled through the maples when Lucy's Lantern rumbled north toward Three Rivers Reservation, a patch of cedar-lined hills 2 hours from the nearest supermarket. Olivia drove, fingers drumming the wheel to an old Sam Cooke track, while Catherine rode shotgun, heart monitor clipped beneath her blouse and a thermos of low-acid chicory coffee balanced between tote bags of measuring spoons. The lab, once a weather-beaten food truck, now sported lemon-yellow paint and a hand-lettered banner. Silent needles stitch loud, free pies and checkups today. Residents in the back clutched clipboards and glucose meters, teens wedged between sackfuls of peaches and folding tables. Every bump in the road rattled pans like distant applause. They arrived to find a clearing already buzzing, a mobile dental van, a vaccine tent, picnic benches borrowed from the tribal youth center. Children chased dusty soccer balls while elders ambled over, curious. Olivia swung open the service hatch and cinnamon-tinged air poured out, carrying the story of every kitchen Lucy had ever blessed. She greeted participants by name when possible, printed from volunteer dossiers, and by friend when memory failed. Catherine's stent allowed her an hour on her feet. She spent it teaching a pair of retired basket weavers how to crimp peach hand pies so filling would peak just enough to flirt. At noon, Olivia glanced toward the cedar tree line and saw an elderly woman studying the truck from a distance, motionless as a carved figurine. Olivia wiped her hands, crossed the field, and introduced herself. The woman, introducing herself as Auntie Rose, spoke in measured syllables. She had diabetes, arthritis, no love for doctors, and a hankering for real pastry, like my mother made before ration books. Olivia described the almond flour crust cooling on the rack, spiced with allspice instead of sugar. Auntie Rose's lips twitched. Maybe, she allowed. Olivia offered a compromise. Come for a slice, stay for a finger stick. 10 minutes later, Auntie Rose sat on a camp chair, chewing thoughtfully while a nursing student read her blood pressure. It registered elevated. Olivia knelt, explaining hypertension in flour and water metaphors until the numbers made sense. Auntie Rose squeezed Olivia's hand and whispered, "You teach like someone fed by grandmothers." Olivia answered, "I was raised by one and found another later." The day rolled like good dough. 220 pies served, 90 screenings, 5 referrals for urgent care, and countless smiles dusted in powdered sugar. As the sun tipped low, Catherine's timer beeped again. She closed the hatch, resting against the warm metal, satisfaction humming where fear once nested. But fatigue slid into her legs like wet concrete. Olivia caught the wobble and guided her onto a cooler. "I'm fine," Catherine argued, but her pallor spoke louder. They agreed to skip the volunteer bonfire, driving straight home under a sherbet sky-streaked pink and tangerine. Halfway back, the truck sputtered, then coughed to silence on a shoulder fringed by cornfields. "A belt, maybe?" Olivia guessed. Catherine clutched her chest, worrying more about her own belt of nerves. Cell service blinked 1 bar. Teens inside cracked jokes to keep spirits light, but dusk blurred quickly into night. Olivia tried the ignition again. Nothing. She exhaled, then remembered Stanley's hammer hanging on a peg above the windshield, a comfort talisman as much as a tool. She grabbed it, stepped into headlight-washed dark, and popped the hood. Catherine protested, yet marvel bled into her voice watching Olivia tap belts, reseat a loose clamp, coax the engine into a reluctant purr. "Stanley would have beamed," she said when Olivia climbed back in. Olivia, grease-smudged, whispered, "He already did, through this." They reached Pine Haven near midnight. Volunteers dispersed to dorms, leaving Catherine and Olivia alone in the barn studio, too wired to sleep. Rain pattered the tin roof. Gentle applause. Catherine poured herbal tea. Olivia spread tomorrow's lesson plans, flaky dough laminations for teens who'd never left county lines. Suddenly, Catherine pressed a palm to the embroidered runner, eyes shining. "When I'm gone," she said softly, "promise you'll keep adding cloth." Olivia's throat tightened. "You're not leaving." Catherine smiled. "Stents don't grant forever, darling, just time enough to reinforce seams." She slid a folded envelope across the table, her updated will, naming Olivia executive director. Olivia's hand shook, taking it. That night, Olivia dreamed of Lucy's oak table stretching into horizon, new plates appearing as fast as old memories faded, each place card bearing names she'd yet to learn. She woke at dawn to the scent of yeast swelling in proofing bins, sunrise filtering turquoise through linen curtains. Catherine sat at the cutting table, stitching another panel to the runner with lavender thread. She glanced up. "Ocean turns purple before day breaks," she said. "Thought we'd match it." Olivia knelt beside her, guiding the needle through fabric, up over pull, feeling each tug anchor her to past, present, and every stranger still waiting for a slice of sweetness and a reason to stay. Outside, birds stitched melodies through the morning hush, and the mobile lab sat in the drive, engine cooling but ready, like a faithful oven preheating for whatever recipe tomorrow might demand. September settled in with afternoons crisp as cracked sugar and the mobile lab's calendar inked solid from county fairs to prison reentry expos. Catherine slowed but refused to step away, her presence now a metronome Olivia measured courage by. On a breeze-bright Friday, they parked Lucy's lantern behind Manhattan Street Elementary, where third graders filed out clutching permission slips that, for some, were the only papers their parents had signed all semester. Olivia taught them to stamp dough with fork-tine constellation patterns, each star a wish they whispered into flour, while Catherine, seated on a folding stool, oversaw blood pressure readings for teachers too busy to schedule checkups. Mid-afternoon, a little boy named Deshaun tugged Catherine's sleeve, eyes solemn above a mask decorated with dinosaurs, and asked if Pi could fix his grandma's heart that forgets stuff. Catherine pressed his palm over her stent scar and said Pi couldn't cure everything, but kindness married to knowledge sometimes could stretch time long enough for miracles to squeeze through. Deshaun nodded as though receiving a secret map, then carried 2 hand pies and a referral card home. Later that evening, when volunteers rinsed pans under an amber harvest moon, Catherine's monitor chimed low battery, mirroring the fatigue smoothing her features. Olivia persuaded her into the passenger seat and drove back by sleepy farm roads. Catherine dozed, head lolling against window, silver hair spill lit by dashboard glow. As the barn studio came into view, she stirred, squeezed Olivia's hand and murmured, "Everything sweet starts with broken fruit." Then she smiled, soft, satisfied, and closed her eyes again. By dawn she was gone, heart surrendered like dough finally resting. The coroner's report would call it a peaceful passing. Olivia called it a handoff. Needle left mid-stitch for her to pull through. Grief thundered, still, duty marched, notifying board members, comforting residents who'd lost a sister in spirit, answering press calls that spun Catherine's life into headline brevity. She waited until the barn studio emptied of casseroles and condolences before walking to the cutting table. The lavender thread still dangled from the unfinished run of linen, needle frozen midair. Olivia threaded it through, up, over, pulled, tears dropping onto cloth, drying as dark petals. The memorial occupied Pine Haven's courtyard under strings of tea lights. Nurses served hundreds of bite-sized pies, each crust stamped with bar tack slashes. Mr. Hollander recited, "Let America be America again," and, when his voice faltered, Deshaun, now honorary junior volunteer, picked up the line. At sunset, Olivia stepped to the mic, clutching Stanley's hammer. She spoke of recipes surviving bakers, of stents and stitches, of cinnamon as a language. She ended by announcing the renaming of baking bridges to the Katherine Johnson Stitch Loud Foundation, unveiling a logo where a needle curved into a heart that doubled as a rising sun. Applause rolled like pie crust across marble, echoing into twilight until cicadas took the chorus. Administrative tides followed. Lawyers finalized Catherine's will. Olivia, executive director. Pine Haven's sole beneficiary of book royalties. Lucy's lantern deeded to the foundation. And the State University offered an endowed chair in community culinary therapy, insisting Olivia shepherd research while training future programs. She accepted, on the condition classes convene monthly inside the barn studio so residents could sit front row. By winter, Olivia had hired 3 new nurses, 2 data analysts, and a retired diesel mechanic to baby the mobile lab. Grants multiplied. A national grocery chain underwrote refrigerated trucks. Legislatures from other states requested pilot kits. One snowy morning, while drafting an interstate toolkit, Olivia remembered Michael's letter. She retrieved it from beneath Lucy's hymn book bookmark, smoothed its creases, and scanned it into the program's mental health curriculum, anonymized, but living proof that apology can be ingredient, not conclusion. On the first anniversary of Catherine's passing, volunteers gathered under ocean-colored curtains now edged with rows of added panels, rose, turmeric, slate, and the runner stretched the length of the main table like a river of stitched time. Olivia placed the final slice of peach pecan at its head, beside the hammer and thimble, then added a fresh embroidered line, "Recipes survive. Love preheats the oven. She signaled the newest teen recruit to ring a service bell salvaged from Lucy's pawned sideboard. Doors swung open and a flood of faces, students, elders, nurses, strangers drawn by scent, poured into the barn. Each handed a plate warm enough to loosen regret. Outside, Lucy's lantern idled, heater fogging midnight blue glass, ready for a hospice stop where families needed pies that tasted of goodbye without bitterness. Olivia checked her bag. Notebooks? Glucose strips. Lavender thread. Letters to deliver. She touched the locket, now engraved on the back with the date Catherine had smiled her last, and whispered, "Broken fruit, broken hearts. Add heat, add sugar, keep serving." The engine revved. Snowflakes spun through headlight beams like silent confetti, and the mobile lab rolled forward, tires crunching fresh tracks into a world still hungry for repair.